most
Okay,
people
terrific.
have muted.
Terrific.
So
Because it's about 6 minutes past the hour now, I'm just going to welcome everybody, and for anyone who arrives late, they can just pick up where we are. So thanks for coming, guys. Very, very simple objective here, which is to start a conversation, to put the spotlight on the jumps, in particular high jump, to ask questions around, you know, why are we lagging? Is the sport struggling generally, or is it just a small little country in the west of Europe, Ireland, who are struggling to put high jumpers on the world stage, and to really elevate young, ambitious talent to be contenders at an elite level? So we're just asking questions, and we're trying to stimulate conversation on the topic. So Stefan, would you like to briefly, in a minute or two, just say hello to people and tell them about your current role in coaching and your relationship with your son? That's a big question people are interested in terms of how you manage that transition from being a dad to being a coach, and what's going on in Sweden.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Stefan Holm. I'm sitting in Karlstad in Sweden. I used to be a high jumper, lost to Antoine at the World Juniors in 1994. But we went separate ways after that. Now I'm into coaching. I have a group of 5, 6 high jumps at the moment. Sophie Skog was in the Olympic final in Rio 5 years ago, 2016. Been competing on the world-class level since then. I also coaching my son, Melvin. He's 16 this year, turned 17 in October, jumped 217 last summer. I also at the moment actually have Erika Kinsey living here in Karlstad, training with us, preparing for the Olympic Games. She's actually married to an American, lives in the US, but because of restrictions and you know, the pandemic situation, she decided to come home to Sweden for half a year and came here to Karlstad. So my main role at the moment is to be high jump coach. I'm also an IOC member and doing some inspiration and stuff. So I'm still in the world of high jumping very much.
Fantastic. So Olivia, do you want to start with some of the questions that people submitted earlier?
sure, Anton. Yeah, I actually wanted to share this first with Stefan. Stefan, thanks a million. Someone has did someone turn off their whatchamacallit, their sound? This is a little welcome video I wanted to share with Stefan and with anybody else who is unfamiliar. Can you see my screen there?
Yep.
You can? Okay, let's move these people in. All right, Stefan. So this is Céad Míle. So there you go, Stefan. That's an Irish band. You mightn't have heard that one before. Big in the 90s here in Ireland. Quite a lot of us would have moshed about to them, called Sultans of Ping. Where's my jumper? But it actually means sweater.
I don't think we picked up the audio, but I'm not sure about anyone else. But it was
maybe
great.
I got to listen to it myself then. Yeah. So I did a little dance here. You can check it out online. Stefan, as I was telling you there in the chat room, my background is as a juvenile jumper, and that's where I'm passionate about seeing here growing our pool of jumpers in Ireland. It's because, as I say to Anton, if you want to reap a bumper harvest, you have to first collect the seeds, plant the seeds, tend to your crops, and then you can expect hopefully a good harvest at the end. So that's where my passion is coming from. And a lot of questions here tonight. And as we say, this is really grassroots athletics, local, you know, not very high level, passion, of course. So the main question people want to know is how, as Anton brought up there in the waiting room too, how do you progress from juvenile to senior? And now that you're coaching your son as well, because obviously the training is different, the load is a lot heavier and can be quite dangerous when you reach elite senior level. So how do you manage it with your son and with those that you coach? And how did you do it for yourself as well?
Well, coaching my son isn't that hard actually, because I was coached by my father when I was a kid. I was coached by my father during my whole career. When I was playing football as a young kid, my father was coaching the football team. When I was competing in cross-country skiing as a kid, my father was coaching in the cross-country and making my preparing my skis and so on. And then ending up in high jumping, he was coaching there as well. So I'm pretty used to being coached by my father. I think that helped me a lot coaching my son. And I think it's important in that situation to be aware of the different roles. I can't be too much of a coach back home, and I can't be too much of a father during the training sessions. But I never really pushed Melvin to become a high jumper. That was his own choice. But then, I mean, if he wanted to do it, and he wanted to jump, and he wanted to be coached by me, and then we have to work that out, of course. But I think we're doing good so far. But we're also, the way of training, I mean, we're trying to just build it around different sort of jumping exercises, not exactly like the ones you showed in the video yet. He's jumping high, but a lot of jumping in all kinds of ways. He's not lifting any weights at the moment. No deep squats, no half squats, no snatch, clean, so on. Maybe we'll start this fall or maybe next year when he's 18 or 19. I started lifting weights when I was 19 myself. So I try to stay out of that as long as possible. And I think that one part of going from being a junior high jumper to becoming a good senior high jumper, you have to learn everything, learn the basics first, learn how to do the high jumping, learn how to do the plyometrics, the different sort of drills over hurdles and bouncing and whatever, throwing medicine balls, sit-ups, push-ups, everything like that. You have to build that sort of ground first and learn the technical skills, and then put on the weightlifting when you're like 19, 20 or something like that. Because if you start too early with the weights, you will get great results when you're 15, 16. But you could never evolve from that afterwards, because you're finished more or less as with your training. You can't put on any more
load.
Yeah.
There's no more
exactly.
load.
Exactly.
And Stefan, so then when you met Anton the last time at the World Junior Championships and he won, what did you do then? What did you do that you just rose and went higher? Yeah.
I mean, when I was 18, 19 years old, I was pretty good as a junior. I jumped 221 when I was 19 years old. I was ending up in 6th place at the European Juniors. I was in 7th place at the World Juniors. I never got any medals on the junior level. I got my first major medal when I was 25 years old. Wow. So, I mean, I had a pretty long way going from being a junior to being a world-class high jumper. But the thing is that I got a little bit better for every single year. I broke my personal best with 2 or 3 centimeters every year. And that's always nice to see that you can jump higher. And I also had another Swedish guy who was my age. We were born in 1976, both of us. And we were jumping pretty much the same heights. And we were competing very good on a national level. On every single competition in Sweden, I knew that I had to go and jump probably around my personal best to even win the competition. I mean, I won my first Swedish championship when I was 22 years old. So it took some years to do that transition to become a good senior high jumper.
And do you think it was the load then? Did you pack on the load from junior to senior?
Yeah, I think so. As I said, I jumped 221 as a 19-year-old, and that fall after the 1995 season for me, then when I was 19, then I was starting lifting weights, doing the deep squats and so on, snatch, cleans, whatever. And that indoor season, 1996, when I was 20 years old, I've become a little bit heavier. I couldn't control those new muscles that I built during a few months. But that summer I jumped 226, and I mean I was pretty close to qualify for the Olympic Games in Atlanta in 1996, and then 6 months later I jumped 230 for the first time. And jumping 230, then you're a world-class high jumper. So I think that starting lifting weights and also more structure around my training, what I should do and what I shouldn't do, and pick out a few exercises that I did and try to do them as best I could, becoming a bit stronger. I mean, I evolved for every year, as I said, and I think that was part of that I had the spirit to keep moving on.
And Stefan, what would you say? Sorry, Anton, I'll let you in there again. Stefan, what would you say to juvenile junior jumpers who are maybe stagnant? I read in a letter you wrote to yourself, the young Stefan, and I think you said there was one phase where it was 15 months where you didn't improve your PB. So what would you say to people who have talent, but just to raise the bar, get that bit further? Anyone listening here tonight?
Be patient. It will take some time. I mean, you have to work, and then also you can't only look at your personal best in high jump. I mean, you will probably get stronger, you will get faster, you will do longer in the standing 5 steps, you will jump over higher hurdles, you will be able to scissor higher in the high jump and everything like that. You'll probably jump 210 more times than you have done before, and so on. You can't only watch your personal best. You have to see the whole picture, because it's not only about the PB. The PB will come in time, but you have to be patient. And if you're not patient, I mean, you can't stress it. You have to wait for it.
Yeah. And one other question, Stefan, this is my personal thing. How much would you say of high jump is mental capacity? Did you do any mental prep work for yourself as a jumper?
When I was 19, 20 years old, I thought that mental coaching was bullshit. When I was 23, I contacted a mental coach and started working with him. And he's still one of my best friends. He's the godfather of my son. He's helping Sophie, that I'm coaching now, with her mental coaching. So I mean, I think it's a mental game. You can't stand there, look at the bar, and say to yourself that, oh fuck, that looks high, I will never ever clear this, because then you won't clear it. So you have to work on your mental abilities, definitely.
Yeah. And would you say, Stefan, that also gave you that extra shift then, because you did work on the mental side? Yeah.
I can't say that it gave me 1 centimeter or 5 centimeters or whatever, but it definitely made me a better high jumper. It made me jump 230 more often. It made me jump 235 more often. It probably made me become Olympic champion as well. But I can't say that it helped me a centimeter or 2, but I can definitely say it helped me to become a better high jumper and a world-class high jumper, and stay on top for many, many years.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And Tone? I've loads more questions here if you want. We'll be just it's Stefan and Olivia talk, but we get more people involved.
2 quick questions, Stefan. Your dad obviously is a very resourceful guy. He obviously has. I'm presuming, is he still around, your dad? Is he still coaching, or?
He's not coaching anymore, but he gives me some advice now and then. He watches competition on TV, and he comes around. Not today, of course, because of the pandemic situation. He's 73 years old as well. But yeah, he still helps me if I ask him. But he also stays away.
How did he learn about high performance jumping? Where did he get his knowledge? What resources did he use? Did he tap into the Patrick Schoberg of the 1980s, or how did he become such a world-beating coach?
I mean, he had a good eye for high jump technique. He still has a great eye for high jump technique. I did a lot of my training on my own. I did a lot of the weightliftings and the plyometrics on my own. But he had a great eye for high jumping, and he learned a lot from Patrick Schoberg's former coach, a Finnish guy named Vilja Nussiainen. They stood next to each other on hundreds of competitions, and Vilja spoke about each and every jumper and each and every jump. And my father watched, listened, and learned. I mean, my father was a football player. He was a goalkeeper in football, so he never had a high jump background himself. But he, for some reason that I can't explain, he has a great eye for technique and for high jump technique.
Terrific. And my final question before anyone else wants to jump in is, between the age of 19 and 25, you mentioned that you hadn't won any championship medals and hadn't really made a breakthrough as a senior athlete. In that time, that, you know, precious 6 years, a lot of people would lose interest. Life gets in the way. Yeah, careers, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. How did you keep yourself interested and motivated through that time?
Well, the girls wasn't interested in me, so what could I do? I had to high jump. No, but really, as I said, I became a little bit better for each year. I jumped a little bit higher. I jumped 230 once, and the year after I jumped 230 2 times, and then 3 times, and so on. So I felt that I became better and better, and I was competing on a world-class level. I jumped the major championships from 1998 and forward. And I mean, I felt that I was so close, and I also felt that I could become a little bit better all the time. And I watched, like, Kajsa Bergqvist. We're the same age as well, and she ended up in 5th place at the World Championships. She won the European Indoors in Ghent in 2000, and I just felt that if she can win, I can win too, because I known this girl since she was 13 years old, and yeah, she's a great athlete, but she's not. She's a human being, and if she can win, I can win. So I always try to focus on positive things, and as I said, I became better for each year, and that I think was the most important thing.
Fantastic, well done. Any questions from the audience here, guys? Open forum for Stefan. I'm very conscious of his time.
Can I ask a question again? You know, we'll go straight to Eamon Harvey there. Go on, unmute yourself there, Eamon. You need to turn on your the microphone, Eamon. Yeah, unmute, if you can unmute yourself there, Eamon.
Stefan, Eamon is an Irish team manager, has traveled with many Irish international teams over the last 2 decades.
It's the bottom left button on your screen, Eamon.
You can unmute him.
No, it comes up ask to unmute. I actually can't unmute him, Anton. No, I can only ask him to unmute. Stefan, while we're waiting for Eamon, you're coaching female high jumpers now. How's that going? Is there a difference between coaching male jumpers and female jumpers, do you think?
I started coaching in 2014, and I thought that I knew pretty much everything about high jump. And I've been coaching now for 6.5 years, and I realized that I don't know shit anymore, because they find out new problems every single day. Not only the girls, the boys too. But yeah, it's a bit different. But I think we're doing fine, and we're working together for many years. I have 2 girls that I've been working with for 6.5 years, and then Erika Kinsey came a couple of weeks ago to Karlstad. But I think we're working out fine. And I think it's also important in this case that the girls known each other since before I started coaching them. They known each other for a very long time, and they know their goods and their bads, and they know that one of them is a bit better than the other one. So it's not that hard competition between them, which eases up things a bit. But yeah, it's a bit different. But also, I mean, coaching your own son is a bit different. Coaching everyone is different in a way. They're all special.
There was a question from one of the participants, Stefan. Were you a full-time athlete between 20 and 23? How did you support yourself? How did you manage the lifestyle of needing to train so much without work, or did you work or have other sporting?
I was studying at the university here in my hometown. Only no full education, just courses for each semester. And I was still living with my parents until I was 25 years old. I actually still lived with my parents when I won my first world indoor title.
All right, fantastic. That's
so I mean, that helped a lot for me to being a professional athlete, because I couldn't afford that lifestyle, having my own apartment and so on, because then I would have to have a job or something. and then I wouldn't be able to focus full time on my athletics.
It can be complicated, yeah, for sure. I think that's smart. Okay. Any other questions there, Olivia?
Yeah, we do. It just there's a few. Can I just ask you, Stefan, the age profile of, I know your son is 15, 16. The girls you're coaching, what age are they roughly?
Sophie's 30 and Evelina is 26. So they've been around. I mean, they were around 20, 25 when I started coaching them. So they already had a long background as high jumpers.
Okay. So does your son train with them when you're coaching the girls, or how does it work?
They do the high jumping part together, but otherwise they're not training so much together. And Sophie is more or less a full-time athlete trying to go for Tokyo this year. So she's training in the mornings, while Melvin still has to go to school, so he's training in the afternoons. But no, they're not training so much together. They're warming up together. They're doing the high jump sessions together now and then, or maybe some sprints and so on. But since they are lifting a lot of weights and Melvin is not lifting at all, it's very different training.
It's a hot topic, Stefan. Nutrition, diet. I was lucky to see you jump 240 in Madrid in 2000, and I think it was 2006 or 7, yeah, 5. It was incredible. But one of the things that really shocked me was the physique of the high jumpers. They seemed so lean, so skinny. It was almost scary watching you guys. And well, power to weight ratio, diet, all that kind of stuff. It's a hot topic, and we spoke about the last time, but it can be a very controversial topic, particularly with, sensitivities around eating disorders, etc. So what's your view on that?
I've never been on a diet myself, actually. I just try to eat normal food, maybe a little bit less during the season. But speaking about Madrid, I had an injury 1 month before Madrid. And then I came back, did 2 competitions, and then my last training session before Madrid was total disaster.
Wow.
So then I went down to the European indoors. I bought a big candy.
Chocolate?
What do you call it? Bag of candy.
Sweets.
Sweets. And then I had this bag in my hotel room. And I felt that, what the fuck, my last training was shit. I will not win this because Rybakov had been great all winter. So I started eating some candy. And when I start eating candy, I can't stop until the bag is empty. So I emptied this huge bag of candy 2 days before I jumped 240.
Wow.
So you never know. You never know.
That's the secret.
What kind of message that's going to send out there, but I can't help getting away from the idea that you think your body weight was probably 65 kilos or 69?
Around 70, maybe 69 or 70.
70 kilos.
I didn't differ very much during the year, maybe 71, 72 during the hard training sessions, in October, November, and then around 70, maybe 69 on a very good day during the competitive season.
That's very interesting, your view on nutrition, that there was nothing extraordinary. Do you think some high jumpers take risks with their diet?
I mean, if you can control it, as a world-class high jumper, I mean, look at Artur Partyka or Dragutin Topic during our days of high jumping, or even Kajsa Bergqvist. They could control it. I didn't know how to do it, and I felt confident anyway. But if you can't control it, if you're an adult, if you're a world-class high jumper, go ahead. But if you're 15, 16 years old, don't go there. Don't start that. Just try to eat normal food when you're hungry, and especially eat right after your training sessions, because that's the most important part.
Somebody asked a question about your height. How was it? Was it intimidating or scary jumping so high above your head? Yeah, there's a question from Finton.
I had some problems when I was a kid. When the bar comes up to eye level or a bit higher, I didn't jump. I just ran under the bar and so on. I had this problem when I was 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. I don't know exactly why I came over it, but I did. But I always try to see the positive things by being a short high jumper. It's easier to control your body. You don't have these long limbs to try to control over the bar. You don't weigh as much. It's easier to lift 70 kilos over a bar than 80 kilos over a bar, and so on. So I really try to focus on the positive parts by being a short high jumper. I always said that I'm 181, and that's the perfect height for a high jumper.
Great attitude. Well done. Another question from Martin was, what are the, if there were 3 critical success factors in terms of technique, or when you look at your son jumping, without the benefit of, you know, strength training or anything, what would be the 3 critical success factors in the execution of the high jumping competition?
I mean, the most critical thing all over is to stay healthy, stay out of injuries. For me as a high jumper, I think it was the speed going into the bar. It was the takeoff, being fast with my right knee in the takeoff, and probably the ability to stay over the bar. But also I did a lot of jumping, a lot of high jumping in training, so I was pretty strong, and I knew that I had the mental strength, and also that was the condition to do many jumps in competition and many jumps on a high level, and I was pretty secure in my approach and so on. So I think for me as a high jumper, I was secure in my approach. I was able to run fast, and I was really quick in my takeoff.
It appeared that you took off about 2 meters away from the bar. It looked like almost a long jump. You were so far away. How did you manage that speed around the bend?
I trained for it for many, many, many years. And I mean, I had to. That was my way of high jumping. I have some clips on my Instagram profile from the World Juniors in Lisbon in 1994 compared to the Olympic golden jump in Athens 10 years later. And it looks pretty much the same in a technical way. But I'm running so much faster in Athens because I'm so much stronger 10 years later. But technically, I'm jumping pretty much the same when I'm 18 as I did when I was 28.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah.
2 questions.
Sorry, go on. I always remember Ben Challenger did some training with you, I think, back in the early 2000s. And a remark he made afterwards was, because I asked him what was the secret, what was the magic sauce, and he said he didn't see anything particularly different. It was just the intensity and the volume was greater. So, I mean, a lot of people look for shortcuts, but really there isn't any magic to it. It's just,
No. There isn't, and a lot of high jumper ask me for advice via Instagram or Facebook or like this, and there are, as you say, there are no shortcuts. You have to do the job. You have to do it year after year after year, and as I said, you have to stay healthy. You have to be smart and stay out of injuries. You have to focus on your training. You have to focus on every single exercise in the training.
Consistently, yeah, fantastic.
Stefan, there's a question here from Cherry. Her son is your son's age, and last year he's 15 and he cleared 202. So we have great hopes for him. So Cherry is wondering, for like in terms of your son Melvin, what area of training, how many days a week does he train? What area do you prioritize in his training?
He's training 6 days a week right now, 6 sessions a week. He's doing a lot of, as I said, plyometrics, jumping over hurdles, jumping drills, high jumping, of course, but also usual strength training like sit-ups and push-ups and step-ups and stuff like that. As I said, we will probably start lifting weights maybe this year in October, or hopefully next year, 2022, when he's 18. So I have pretty much of a long-term plan for him. But right now it's jumping and running in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, great. And then there's another question here from Liam. I can't see him on screen here. He's texting me privately about when you were competing in Swedish athletics was doing really well. Was that a concerted effort by the whole Swedish athletics group, or was it just good luck?
It was pretty much good luck, actually, because we had a talented generation born in the middle 70s. And then it was me and Kajsa and Staffan Strand and Robert Kronberg, the hurdler, Patrick Christiansen, the pole vaulter, and then came Christian Olsson, born 1980, and the Kaller sisters, the hurdlers, and Carina Clift, of course, and some other ones. So we had a very talented generation that came through at the same time. And of course, we pushed each other. As I said, Kajsa was she showed the way for me. When she won in Ghent at the European Indoors, she showed that it was possible to win. As I said, if she can win, I can win. And if I can win, anyone can win. So we had a great generation and a great spirit in the Swedish national team at the moment. It lasted for a couple of years. Right now we have an interesting generation coming up with Mondo Duplantis, of course, and Daniel Stoll, the discus thrower, and some other ones. So maybe we can have these golden years again in a couple of years.
Okay, yeah. And then is there a lot of support for juvenile athletes there in Sweden, or
no?
Yeah,
No, it's not for the coaches either. I mean, I'm coaching on a national level, but I'm not paid much. I can do this because I had a good career myself, so I have some money on the side from my high jumping career. But otherwise, it's hard. Actually, it's hard to be coach. It's hard to be a talented young athlete. Melvin, of course, it's easier for him because I'm his father and he's got a lot of attention from media and so on, and he gets some sponsors if he wants to. But no, it's not very easy at the moment.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to. It can be very easy to look at your national federation and say, "Oh, what can they do for us?" And then blame and find excuses. But a lot comes down to individual responsibility and resourcefulness. Do you understand what I mean by resourcefulness? Your ability to use people in your community and to be lucky enough to have good parents and a safe, secure home in which to stay healthy and stay, keep your feet on the ground, pardon the pun, or not keep your feet on the ground. But the point I'm trying to make is maybe people complain too much about the lack of funding, etc. I got a really interesting message from Charles Austin yesterday. Do you remember some battles with Charles Austin?
Yeah.
And I said, how did you recover from tearing your patellar tendon in 1995? And he said he had surgery, but he said he never went to a physiotherapist. He rehabilitated himself using Tyroband and resistance bands. And I just thought that's incredible discipline and intelligence that he'd be able to train himself to rehabilitate. It just blew me away,
I think you have to do the best of what you have. I mean, you can have the greatest training facilities in the world, but if you're not doing the job, it doesn't matter. Or you can have nothing, but if you're doing the job, if you're willing to make the sacrifice, you can go a very, very long way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And one other question there, Stefan, it's popping up here in the chat box. Here, when we're talking about long-term athlete development, we encourage athletes to do combined events at juvenile age. Does your son take part in combined events, or is he just focusing on the high jump?
But when he started competing when he was 12. In 2016, he did 3 competitions that year. He only wanted to do high jump, nothing else. And when he was 13, he had to do triple jump in a team match, and he happened to win that competition in triple jump. And then he realized that it wasn't that dangerous to compete in other events as well. So for the past 2 years, he won the high jump, the long jump, and the triple jump in the national youth championships, both indoors and out. So he jumped 720 in long jump and 14.5 in triple jump. But no combined events because he's a lousy thrower. He did like 16 meters in javelin this year. So he don't want to go there, but he's doing some sprints now and then, or the jumping events.
Stefan, do you think that at club level, there's too much of an emphasis on competition for under 12s? I mean, for kids, I see a lot of children competing, and I sometimes wonder if it's unhealthy, rather than just focusing on the events and conditioning and kind of fun games they could do at club level.
If I look here in Sweden, I think they're competing too much because they're competing all year around. But on the other hand, all sports are like that today. You got ice hockey camps in the summertime, you got indoor football games in the wintertime. So these sports are all year round as well. So maybe just to keep the kids in the sport, they have to compete more or less all the time. But on the other hand, you can't preparing for competition every single weekend. You have to do the training in between anyway. Mm-hmm. I think that's the problem. But as I said, Melvin did 3 competitions when he was 12 years old, and that was his first year as an athlete, as a high jumper. And the same with me, I started when I was 12 as well. So I mean, you don't have to compete very much before that, I think. But on the other hand, to keep the kids in the sport, maybe you have to compete. But I think about the parents too. Maybe they want to stay home for a weekend or two now and then during the year as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is a school of thought that kids can burn out by 16, 17 if they've been competing hard from under 9, under 10, under 11. Yeah, it's just.
Well, I mean, lot of them, they're going to training camps to Italy when they're 15. Where are you going to go when you're 20? To the moon? Because there's nothing left to do.
Yeah.
You have to take it a bit easy. I mean, if you're going to have a career, you will compete on a world-class level for 10, 15 years. You can't burn it out when you're 12 or 13 years old. That's just silly.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. David, are you there?
I am, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. David, I was thinking of going through the PowerPoint slides just for a bit of structure.
Sure.
Is that okay? Cool.
Actually, can I
Before
ask a
you,
question?
yeah, go on.
Cool.
I was just going to ask Stefan there. I really like what you say there about that you must be patient in your development and not want everything at once. And but what I see is a lot of young athletes, they want success now, and if they don't have it, it's like they want to move on to do something else where they will be successful. And so I was kind of wondering, how do you manage that impatience? And are there other rewards that you can sell the athlete in being patient and taking their time?
I mean, the generation growing up today, they want something all the time. If you're tired of the app on your iPhone, you just change the app and you get something else, and you play these computer games and you get something all the time. It's not that easy as an athlete to work that way. But as I said before, I try to see the whole picture. You can't only watch at the personal best in your favorite event. You have to see, maybe you're breaking your PB in flying 30 meters, or you're breaking your PB in standing 5 steps, or you're breaking your PB in scissors, or you're clearing a height 2 times in a training session that you only cleared once in your life before. So trying to find these things that you've never done before that's better than anything you've ever done before, even if it's not a personal best in your favorite discipline or favorite event. And maybe you're breaking your PB in shot put, even though you're a high jumper or whatever, because you have to see the whole picture. It's not what you're doing when you're 12 or 13 or 15 or even 19 years old that's important. If you look at the world junior record holders in track and field, not many of them hold the world record on a senior level as well. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's not what you do when you're 19, it's what you do when you're 25 or 28 or even 30. I broke my personal best outdoors when I was 32 years old. I jumped 237. That's the highest I've ever jumped outdoors when I was 32 years old.
I find that incredible, Stefan. I was convinced, and all respect to my coach in Liverpool, I shared a coach with Steve Smith in Liverpool in the mid-90s, and Mike was a great guy. He's still a great guy. He's coached Katharina Thompson-Johnson and many international athletes, but he was of the opinion that by 25 in high jump, if you haven't made it, you're finished. I think he's changed his attitude since, but personally, I felt quite burnt out by my early 20s. And I was competing really hard at 9, 10 years of age. I won an under 10 national championships. It was the last year they had an under 10 national championships. And the under 11, under 12, under 30, it kept going on and on. By the time I was 22, I was wrecked and frustrated as well. And I think it supports your opinion, which is, it doesn't matter what you do at 11, 12, 15, because I think a lot of studies, and I've read about this extensively, a lot of studies show that successful juveniles and juniors more often than not do not progress to successful seniors. So we need to be very careful of that and look at the long-term picture.
Yeah, I was told that if you're not jumping 230 at the age of 19, you will never become a world-class high jumper. I jumped 221 and I still managed to go all the way. And in Sweden, the youngest that hold the Swedish championship is 15-year-olds, and I think that's good. when you're 11, 12, you're competing on your own district level, sort of. When you're 13, 14, maybe you're part of Sweden. Sweden is southern Sweden, middle Sweden, north Sweden. So you're competing in, as in my case, in the middle Sweden when you're 13, 14. When you're 15, 16, you're competing on the youth national level. And 17, 18 on the European level. And then 19, 20 maybe then on the world level. I think that's a good progression. Because as you say, if you become national champion when you're 11 years old, who the fuck cares when you're 25? Yeah, you can sit on the pub and tell everybody, I was the best in my country when I was 11. So what?
Yeah, and there's a great intensity, particularly with the pressure of mothers and fathers out there. You know, kids can feel the weight of that expectation. I don't think it's particularly healthy. Personally, I'd love to see just kids having fun, learning the fundamentals of an event, and training to be all-rounded athletes in their juvenile ages, rather than being too focused on anything specific. Any final questions for Stefan?
Yeah, there's loads in the chat box there, Anton. One of the questions, what did you do during competition? You know, did you have a routine? Stay warm, stay flexible, stay calm.
I had millions of routines actually. So if I'm going to tell you about that, we're going to stay here all night. But that was one of the things that I work with my mental coach, to have sort of routines before a competition and during a competition. The way I prepared when I always took a shower. I always shaved myself before I went to the stadium. I even packed my bag in a certain way to know that I had all the stuff that I need in my bag, brought it to the stadium, to the track. I sat a bit away from the other jumpers usually, because I realized that I burn a lot of energy if I'm going to talk to them and you know, hang around with these guys. I'm not here to be friendly with them. I'm here to jump higher than all of them.
Probably why we never got to know each other, Stefan.
Exactly. I was not the most social high jumper. So that's actually really, really fun part of being a coach now, because traveling around on all these major competitions, high jump meetings, and talk to people and realize that they're pretty nice actually, because I never knew them when I was competing against them. But yeah, I had a lot of routines, and I think it could be good to have if you're that kind of person. But some people have the routine to not have any routines at all. But I think you need a plan, you need a routine to know what was good and what was bad, to go back and have a debriefing afterwards and realizing, why did the competition end like this, or why did the season end like this? What did I go wrong? Where did I go right? So I can be better for next year, to prepare better for both trainings and competitions.
And there's a question popped in there, would you do anything differently if you were to go back again? Would you change anything?
I'm a big fan of Back to the Future. So I think it's hard to go back and change things, because if I gave my 15-year-old great advice, then I would probably not win the Olympic Games when I was 28. So yeah, I could change a lot of things. I know that I did mistakes, but I'm trying to use that as a coach instead, trying to help my athletes and saying that, yeah, I did that way and I think that I went wrong there. So if we're doing this way instead, hopefully that will be better. Because I know that I can't change what I did 20 years ago, but I can change my jumpers today.
And do you have any injuries today from your jumping?
No, actually not. When I retired high jumping, I played football on the lowest possible Sunday league level here in Sweden. And there was much more injuries there than during my high jump career for 10 years.
Yeah, and I think there was another question there. There's a lot of questions, Stefan. I'm flying through them. Someone said, did you have an exit plan, knowing that when you were coming up to retirement from high jump, did you have any, did you give it any thought? Because it's not easy to go from world Olympic level to off the stage.
I decided pretty early on that 2008 would be my last year, because I knew that was an Olympic year. I would be 32 years old. And after that, it would be 4 years to the next games, and I would be 36 by then. For me, the Olympic Games was very, very special. The World Championships, fine, that was great competitions, but the Olympic Games, it's something extra. So I decided I will retire after Beijing 2008. And I'm very glad that I could retire by my own means. I choose to retire I didn't have any injuries. I wasn't too old for high jumping. I was still a world-class high jumper when I retired. And I think that made it so much easier. And I spoke to Colin Jackson, the great hurdler, and he said, it's better that people ask you why you retire than that they ask you why you don't retire.
Yeah.
So I was satisfied with my decision, and that made it so much easier to go on with my personal life afterwards. And I also knew that I can always go back to school. I can go back to the university and start studying again. If no one will help me out getting a job, I can always go back to school.
That's great. And another question here, but I think you did compete at masters level. Did you?
A few times.
Men's over 40. Yeah. Will you continue to compete, do you think?
Well, me and Melvin have this idea that we're going to jump 4 meters together on the same day. And we haven't done that yet. We jumped 395 so far. I jumped 2 meters, he jumped 195 a couple of years ago. And if he can evolve and I can decrease not so fast, we could probably jump 4 meters this summer maybe. And also, I mean, now I'm in a new age group in the Masters. I'm 45 years old now, so maybe I will try to break the Swedish record. You know, it's always fun to be around.
Yeah, and I think Charles Aston, and Charles Aston, I think, set the men over 45 Masters world record. So maybe you can go after his.
Yeah, he said that if he gets $100 million, he will jump 7 feet again, and he won't.
Oh, great! Yeah,
Olivia, I'll go straight into these slides if you don't mind.
Do, Anton. Yeah, off you go.
Now, there's nothing that's extraordinary here. Again, this is just an opportunity for people's imaginations to be sparked, and also for people to ask questions. So look, what we're trying to do here is dialogue, encourage collaboration, because one of the great myths of athletics, in my opinion, is that it's an individual sport, whereas I think Stefan and a lot of really good athletes would agree that it's more about a team effort. I'm talking about your coach, your parents, your friends, your fellow athletes, your physiotherapists, etc. So if you are resourceful enough to find a really good coach, a person who can allow you access to a really good gym, maybe a strength and conditioning coach, a good physiotherapist, masseuse, an agent who can find you good competitions, that's the team collaborative element I'm talking about. Topics we wanted to bring up, and anyone who wants to jump in, please, you're welcome at any time. Just send a chat preferably, or raise your hand. You can do that through the controls. Adversity, meaning all the problems people have today with lockdown and COVID related restrictions. We talked a lot about junior to senior transition with Stefan. Thank you, Stefan, for that. The periodization cycle is something not everybody is familiar with, but I think Stefan would agree that you can't keep hitting plyometrics and, as a senior athlete, kind of elastic strength or explosive weightlifting for 11 months of the year. I'll talk about that briefly. Strength and conditioning, rest and recovery. We won't have time for everything there, but they're the main themes that maybe you can ask questions about. In Ireland, yeah.
No, I was going to say that big one you touched on there that most people would be interested in now is, I know that you're not in as a severe lockdown in Sweden as we are here. It's very strict here in Ireland at the moment. It's 5 kilometers. We can't go and we can't train. So would you have ideas, inventive ideas on how to train at home for jumpers?
We've actually been very lucky here. We have a training facility and we've been able to train there all the time. But I think staying at home, and I guess you have winter as well in Ireland as we have here in Sweden. We get like -10 or -12 at the moment. It's not that fun to be outdoors. So I'm glad we can be indoors. But I mean, you have to just stay positive to start with and try to find exercises. I mean, use Instagram, use internet, try to find ideas from people over there, because there are so many great ideas for training out there. You can always strengthen up your body in different ways back home as well, even though you can't jump.
Absolutely.
And
we've got some links.
Also remember that we will come out of this. There will be a day when the pandemic situation will be over, and then we will come back again. And then you could be better than ever if you do the job back home now.
Absolutely. So you're only limited by your imagination, eh?
Yep.
Okay, so these are some of the obstacles, you know, that people have talked about in the past. A changing environment just means adaptation. You know, your garden, if you're lucky enough to have a garden or even a patch of grass, that should be enough to improvise with plyometrics, with body weight circuits, even with speed drills to get yourself conditioned and to keep yourself fit. Some of these links we're going to share with people, but there's a ton of information on the internet. The challenge isn't really finding information, it's distilling the information. It's finding a filter not to get distracted with all the rabbit holes in the internet. So you really want to find what is relevant. But I've just included a selection of 6 or 7 videos which I think are relevant to high jumpers, which you can look at in your own time. Maybe we can watch one. Again, this might be pretty basic for some people, but the training year. Okay, so I wrote this first paragraph simply because I think maybe with 17, 18, 19-year-olds is possibly too much jumping. But I really want to emphasize that an holistic approach is very helpful, focusing on kind of circuits, elastic strength, staying injury-free, like Stefan said, a lot easier said than done. And we'll talk about rest and recovery and its role in staying injury-free in the next slide. But
so we can't see your slides. We can't see your slides. So if you can just put on the, like, we can see the first slide, but you need to put it on to play.
All right.
You need to go to presenter view. Yeah, presenter view. Yeah.
Okay. How about now?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
Share screen. Yeah, share screen, and then when you're in there,
yeah. Okay.
presenter view. Yeah.
1 second. Share screen. Is that showing?
Yeah, and then play it. Yeah.
Is it changing?
No.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe play from presenter view, the third button over. You see it there in the top left.
Present. Oh yeah, I see present view. Yeah. How about that?
But you need to share your screen again.
Okay, share screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Cool. So we talked about some of the obstacles. What I loved about what Stefan talked about was just the consistency. And I really believe a critical success factor is being in a stable environment, you know, with good people around you. You know, in his case, it was his parents who had a love of sport and obviously a love of Stefan, that they're going to support him. But in those important years between 19 and 25, just being consistent and thinking about the long term and not freaking out that you're not a world beater by 22, 23. So adversity can come in many different shapes and forms. And obviously there's a changing training environment now, which people need to adapt to. Can you see this slide with all the links?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So again, you can watch that in your own time. We might watch one of them, the footballers. If you don't mind, I'm just going to click on the footballing one. I think it's quite interesting. Can you see the link now to YouTube?
All you need to launch
No.
tools you claim everyone has.
So I'm not going to waste time on that. It obviously doesn't work. Is it back to the links page?
Yeah, you're on training, starts at home. Yeah.
Cool. So you can watch that in your own time. Okay, so the training year. And again, Stefan, jump in at any time here. I've just basically said it's an 11-month training cycle. This is very, very simplistic. Roughly 3-4 weeks of recovery. In the European season, that would mean from the end of August, September, through to maybe mid-late September, depending on when you finish your competitive season. And what I learned when I was jumping was you can manage a double periodization year with a heavy winter, roughly 12 weeks of progressively heavy training, followed by competitive season from usually mid-January to mid-March. A lot of people try and maintain technical high jump training in the heavy period, which some people would question because your legs are quite heavy. And in my experience, you can only really replicate the freshness, the competitive legs of a high jumper when you start easing back from the heavy training typically in January. What's your view on that, Stefan? When do you think you can introduce technical training with fresh legs?
I totally agree. For me, I started jumping in mid-November from short approach. Mid-December, I started jumping a little bit higher. And then around New Year, I started jumping more and more leading up to competitions in January. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Terrific. So you need that level of freshness. Otherwise, you're not replicating a realistic situation. The training year, I was telling Olivia, I stayed up late trying to do a Gantt chart on Excel and I couldn't do it. So I just did this very simple table on PowerPoint. And I mean, it just gives an idea of what you're working on throughout the year. September to March, roughly 6 months preparing for the indoor season. You're working on your general body conditioning for the whole time. Speed, agility are very important characteristics right throughout the season. Strength foundation, roughly a month just to get into it. And then building up into a cycle of heavy training, working down from roughly 8 to 10 repetitions of your relevant weights. That could be squat, it could be power clean, typically leg weights. And then when you get down to 3 repetitions or 2 repetitions, going back up at a higher level again, then slowly introducing explosive strength around Christmas time, December. Heavy plyos, you can't do that for too long. You need to take generous recoveries after a big bout of plyometric training. What's your view on that calendar, Stefan?
I agree with it mostly. Maybe I would have a little bit more strength foundation, as you call it here, but otherwise I totally agree. I think that's pretty much what it looks like as a high jumper and or any other athlete as well. And I think you have to understand that you have to have a period of training where you're not competing at all, where you're not focusing on the technical aspects of high jumping. You have to do the tough training to get better, because that's the part of the year where you become a better high jumper.
I was always fascinated by the kind of pre-season routine of people like Steve Smith, who for almost 10 weeks before a major competition did practically nothing. I was very interested to hear that you were injured in the week or in the weeks before your 240 jump, Stefan. Jonathan Edwards was famously injured before his 1995 breakthrough year. And there's a lot of people who think that injury is actually a blessing in disguise as a forced recovery, where a lot of power eventers don't have the opportunity to rest to the extent that their limbs, tendons, ligaments need to rest. Totally different than running. You know, distance runners, you know, their mileage is very, very high up till quite close to competition. But in high jump, the last 2-3 weeks before a major competition, you're doing what? Maybe 1 or 2 sessions a week, very explosive, very low intensity, very high quality. What was your last few weeks before the championship like, Stefan?
Yeah, as you say, you're doing less and less in training. Maybe I train more or less every day, but I mean, I did 200 jumps over hurdles and boxes during my tough training sessions in October, November, and maybe I did 30 or 40 jumps during the season. Wow. And also I did 30 or 40 high jumps in a session in November, December, then I did 10 during season. So I did less, but on very, very high quality on every single exercise and every single training session.
That's critical, that balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so rest and recovery, obviously a critical piece. I've talked about prehab there. I mean, that's just your knowledge of how the body works, understanding that, you know, how the ligaments and tendons remain healthy, how you condition all your body as a kinetic chain, getting close to physiotherapists and understanding what's dangerous and what's safe. I liked using ice baths. I transitioned to running, Stefan, after doing the high jump, and I found cold therapy very, very effective in dealing with inflammation. I still do because I have back problems now. And I don't hesitate to jump in the sea or to jump in an ice bath. Even cold showers in the morning, they're fantastic for your circulation.
Anton, I have a question there for Stefan. Stefan, Anton mentioned before about having a team of support around you. How big was your team of support around you back in your day? Who did you have? What did you have around you?
I mean, of course, I had my father as my coach. I had my mental coach, Christian. I had a physio. She wasn't dedicated to me, of course, but I could always call her and get her help. I had some help with the lifting from the National Olympic Committee. And I also had some biomechanical help from a guy working here in Karlstad, a former javelin throwing coach. So I had a pretty small team actually, but they were good people, and we worked together for many, many years. And I think that also part of it, that you have to know all the people around you very well to trust them.
Did your father coordinate that, or how did you pull those guys together? It's very interesting because as an individual sport, there's a lot of logistics and project management involved.
I mean, it more or less worked out for itself. The mental coach, of course, was my own choice because I couldn't work together with someone that I hadn't chosen myself. And I also had some help from the Swedish Olympic Committee. They started going in with funds in 1998 and the years to come after that. So they helped me out with lifting, and if I needed some other sort of help. The physio was a woman living here. She'd been working with the Swedish national team, and she luckily lived in Karlstad as well. So part of it was just luck, pure luck, that I had great people living in the same town as I did.
Well done.
And Stefan, another question here there's a lot now in the chat box. So roughly at your peak, how many jumps were you doing a week? How much weights, how many plyos? I know it varies, as Anton says there in the periodic cycle, and the intensity varies, but roughly what was your week like?
Oh, if I take a usual week in October or November, when I did my toughest training, I had one session with deep squats, 6x6, half squats, 6x6, step ups, 3x5, I think, calf raises, and hamstrings curl. And the day after, I did some cleans and snatch, 5x5 of each, and some running.
What was your best power, Stefan?
Excuse me?
What was your best power clean?
118.
Wow, very impressive. And squat?
With a body weight of 7. 148 in deep squat, ass to the grass.
You went deep squat. That seems.
Yeah, I love deep squat.
Deep squat. Wow, I never did deep squat. We only ever did 90 degrees, quarter squats, maybe half squats in the foundation period. But why did you do
That's
deep?
where you went wrong.
Yeah. Why did you do deep squat? What was the thinking there?
No, I mean, that was the advice I had from Bill Yunusian and the coach of Patrick Sjöberg when we started lifting weights. And I like deep squats, and a lot of people warned me for deep squats. And then we had a coach, a hammer throw coach, moving here to Karlstad. He said, "Oh, deep squat is the greatest." So then proved me right, I guess. But I loved it. I still love it.
How heavy did you go deep squat?
148 is my PB.
And then shallow squat, how heavy did you go?
I don't know. I never really tried to go as heavy as possible, but 200 maybe.
Wow, that's incredible. Because I know in the Liverpool camp, Steve Smith, they would never do full deep squats, but they'd lift up to 300 kilos. I know Dalton Grant is the same, over 300 kilos, quarter squat. Brendan Riley, the same. But they'd be big on the power cleans. Didn't do much step ups. I personally found step ups a bit dangerous. Lunges? Did you do lunges?
What's that in Swedish?
Oh, lunges. How do you lunge? You just stepping forward, and you're squatting on a single leg.
I didn't do that at all.
And jump squats? Did you do any jump squats with Oh wow!
I think that wasn't very good for my back, actually.
Yeah, it's quite dangerous. Yeah.
The same thing with quarter squats, too heavy. It's the back takes a lot of damage.
Well, that's answered a big question for me personally. I'm amazed that you weren't doing those heavy quarter squat lifts. Okay, so
and what else was your week like then, Stefan? So you the squats, the 2 days of weights. Did you have a day of?
Yeah, I did 2 days of lifting and 2 days of jumping. 1 day with plyometrics, hurdles, boxes, so on, and 1 day with the bounding, standing 5 steps, standing 10 steps, and so on. 60 meters bounding.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of jumping, sort of
60
during
meters of bounding. Wow.
24 by 60 meters,
60
jumping on one leg.
Incredible. It seems heavy volume. I think that's what Ben Challenger was talking about. It was that the exercises weren't, you know, rocket science, but it was just the volume and the intensity was incredible. That's amazing.
We have it there in Swedish, Colin. Sorry, I'm not getting everybody's questions here, Colin. It'd be lovely if actually people wanted to talk. We all have different accents here in Ireland, Stefan, so it might get complicated for you. But if anybody did want to talk, raise your lava suis, as we say here in Ireland, and maybe you can put you on. But häftig, my Swedish, as you know, isn't the best, Stefan, but häftig rörelse framåt is Swedish.
What about some of our juniors? Aoife, do you want to ask anything, or who else is there? David Cusson, or any of our aspiring young juniors? Cherry, maybe.
Yeah, raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Just unmute yourself and come in, join, say hello. Yeah, Kelly Walker, unmute yourself. Oh, Fiona, off you go. She was one Fiona. Unmute yourself there. Hello.
Hello.
And do I have to unmute you? Oops,
unmute.
You're doing a great job, Olivia. You don't need me to talk.
Oh.
And thanks, Anton.
You're grand. Did you want to say something, Fiona? No?
No.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't.
Hi there.
You raised your hand.
This is Martin here. Can I ask a question?
Do Martin,
Stefan there. Away. Yeah. Just from a juvenile point of view, their training, you know, because it's a very explosive sport, and especially in juveniles, they get tired because they're doing a lot of jumps in the competition. So how would you balance endurance training without affecting explosiveness at a juvenile level?
As far as I know, the kids, they can do anything before they get tired. I mean, my son, he can jump too much in training, but I think it's for a kid. I mean, they go until they too tired and they can't train anymore. So I don't really know what to answer, actually.
You answered it. Yeah, you answered it.
People like Summer, don't mean to put you under pressure, but Summer Leckie from Northern Ireland won a silver medal in the World Juniors quite recently. Anything you'd like to ask Stefan about what works in Sweden?
You're putting people under pressure. They might run off.
Okay, cool. Dara over in Brazil. Any questions, Dara? More pressure.
Stefan, hello. I don't have a question, but I can tell you something. I had a training partner, Bobby Aloysius from India. She competed in the Athens Olympics, and she named her first child after you. Yeah.
Wow.
There is a Stefan Holm in India then.
There's a Stefan Aloysius in India. Yes, and that's to your credit.
Awesome.
As long as he's not also calling him daddy.
Yeah. Well, Dara was a superb young athlete, and Dara, you mentioned before in chats that you had this incredibly powerful takeoff. However, you couldn't handle the speed. You were a tall guy like myself. Many people think, you know, it's advantageous to be tall as a high jumper. Personally, I think it's a bit of a myth, and Stefan is proof of that, because it's really hard to coordinate your limbs and to find the right balance and to avoid injury as a tall guy. What was your experience with that, Dara?
I think watching Stefan jump, you can interject here, please, but being the shorter high jumper, you're able to control your rotation over the bar better. Your rotation was faster over the bar, and you used that to great advantage. But still, you had an amazing takeoff to handle. it's a powerful thing. It's a very useful thing, a powerful takeoff. But if you can't use it, it's absolutely useless. What insights could you share with us about your development of the speed takeoff?
The speed factor was awesome. I don't know how you controlled it. Any recipes there for managing high speed at a sharp angle?
I mean, it all comes down to training, and training a lot of doing exactly that. As I said before, if you look at videos from the World Juniors when I'm 18 years old, and you look at the video when I win the Olympic title in Athens, it looks pretty much the same. But I'm so much stronger that I can control that sort of speed as I did when I was 28 years old, because I was jumping the same way, technically speaking. And people said that I was running fast when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. And maybe I did, but I was running so much faster when I was jumping 240 in Madrid. I can even remember that 4 years left of my four strides before the takeoff, I say to myself, just run to the bar now and see what happens. I could have ended up in the stands because I was running so fast. But that day everything just worked out. Yeah, but it all comes down to training, and maybe try to run too fast and see what happens. Maybe it worked out for you in training as well. You never know.
That yeah, the confidence is such an important thing, not just in high jumping, but in any sport. It's a big factor. Tell me, did you ever have to reinvent your technique? Did you ever have to go back to the drawing board and say, what I'm doing is not working? What should I do?
I tried when I was 18 or 19 to have a two-arm takeoff. I tried that for a couple of months during the indoor season and realized that I can't do this. So I went back to jump the way I naturally did. Maybe it wasn't as good biomechanically speaking as jumping with the two-arm drive. But I also realized that this is the way I do high jump. And this is the natural way for me to do high jump. And we were speaking about this the other day in training, actually. We were speaking about the movie, The Legend of Bagger Vance with Will Smith. He's a golf caddy. And he speaks about the authentic swing as a golfer, the way you do it when you're in the zone. And I think my authentic swing, my authentic way to high jump was the way I was jumping. So I didn't try to change anything technically. I just tried to become stronger and faster and technically more stable, especially in my approach. And then I thought that I was going to jump higher that way.
Terrific. Great answer. Well done.
It's a relief, Stefan, to hear you talk like that. So many people can get bogged down in the technicality of high jumping. I like the way you keep it simple and focus on the bread and butter of jumping. So
yeah, I think that's
I usually compare this, but I guess most of you people, you're brushing your teeth with your right hand. You could change to your left hand if you really have to. When you're really focused, when you're really in a sort of state of mind and relaxed, it's quite easy to change hand to brush your teeth. But when you're stressed up, when you have to rush things, then you're going back to what's normal, to brush your teeth with your right hand. And for me, it's the same thing as a high jumper. During training on a low height, it's pretty easy to work on technical aspects. But in the competition situation, when the adrenaline rush on, when you're under pressure, you go back to the way you're used to jump, because that was what feels good for you. So for me, I wouldn't try to change your technique because it's better theoretically, because it would probably not work in a practical way.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. You're pretty much working backwards from some of the natural movements of an athlete rather than supply-driven, which would be very unnatural. Terrific.
I think Wendy might want to say something there. Do you, Wendy?
Yeah, Wendy, go.
Yes. Hi, Stefan. I'm from Belfast in Northern Ireland. Hello, everybody. Thanks for putting this on today. It was great. I have several athletes that are listening to you. I personally was very small, 5'3", and jumped 182 40 years ago, so it never put me off being a high jumper. You said that you learned something now that you've changed that with your son, that you feel were better now than you were doing it. Could you give us an idea of what those were?
It was very, very noisy.
Someone else's mic is on, I think.
I think maybe someone else's mic was on. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah,
that's better. Yeah.
Oh, good. You had said that you had learnt through your own high jumping career some things that you changed now for your son. Can you give us an idea of what those are and what you feel you've been able to improve as a coach rather than as a jumper?
One thing is definitely to have patience. It's so much easier to say to him now to have patience and stay calm, because I knew how I reacted when I was 15 or 16. I didn't break my PB and so on. So that's definitely one thing to try to learn that thing for him. Another thing is that we were talking about it earlier on, Antoine, as well, with the what you do the weeks before a major championship. And I wasn't resting a lot. As I said, I was training more or less every single day. So I tried to get my high jumpers to take a day off now and then. Sometimes the best training is to rest at least one day, because you're training and training and training, and you're so focused on your performances all the time. So sometimes you just have to take a day off. And I was very, very bad as an athlete to take that extra day off now and then. Maybe I could have gone a little bit higher. Maybe I could have won a little bit more. But as I said, I can't change that for myself, but I can try to teach my athlete that today.
Were you ever involved in a jump-off situation? And if so, do you think that having a mental coach, or somebody on the psychology side of things, did that help you then win any jump-offs? Or were you just so naturally competitive that you were able to do it yourself?
I had a few jumps off, but I was also a lot in sort of dual jump. There are only 2 jumpers left, especially on the national championships, because for many years it was me and Stefan Strand. We were so much better than the rest of the Swedish high jumper. And then there was me and Linus Törnblad one-on-one, and it was me and Jaroslav Rybakov one-on-one in some major championships as well. And I loved that situation. And maybe I got some help from my mental coach, of course, but I loved it already when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. So, yeah, I think you have to be competitive, of course, to go all the way. But as I said, also, I think you can have a lot of help from a mental coach.
Thank you.
I will actually have to leave in a couple of minutes. I have to pick up my son. He's at his girlfriend's house, so it's getting a bit late in Sweden.
And it's getting late here too, Stefan. Normally, for some of us, it's normally bedtime, but Anton might want to say a few more questions, and if I don't get to say anything, will you visit us here in Ireland sometime? Not just myself now, but everybody in the high jump community. Maybe Dave Sweeney can throw something together.
Yeah, I would love to come to Ireland. As I said before, when the other ones wasn't listening, I've only been to Ireland once. I competed at the European Cup in Dublin in 1997. It was windy, it was cold, my feet hurted a lot, and I lost the competition, and we lost the European Cup 2 points to Finland. So I would love to have some better memories from Dublin and Ireland than that.
There's nicer places outside of Dublin, Stefan. not putting it against the Dubs. And we'll show you a good time. We'll bring you around some great tracks, some great high jump settings as well, and we'll make sure the sun shines. Yeah, go on, Dave.
Stefan, could I ask, just when you look at the high jumpers around the world today, who excites you about the event?
Barshim, of course.
In men and women. Yeah. So.
Barshim on the men's side, I think he's a great athlete. I would love to see him compete soon again. He hasn't competed since he won the Worlds in Doha 2019. But I think he really deserves to win the Olympic gold in Tokyo this year. On the women's side, Lasitskin, of course, but also Mahucic is really, really, really interesting. She's so young, jumped 204 already. She might be the one to break the world record in a couple of years' time.
A question there from Dara. He said, do you think someone will break Sotomayor's record?
Yeah, in time. I mean, all records will be broken. It might take 50 years or 100 years, but they will be broken someday. I won't break it though. That my days are gone, but someone will.
Anton, you're on mute. It's good to have you on mute, Anton.
On mute. I bet my wife wished she could do that. Stefan, you've been very generous with your time. You've exceeded our expectations. Thank you so much. And like we said, there'll be a welcoming committee in Ireland if you ever decide to take a holiday there. We'd love to say hello. But thank you so much. Please enjoy your weekend, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks, Stefan.
We're doing this every Friday from now on.
Yeah, perfect.
Until we have an Olympic champion, yeah?
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Olivia,
Thank you.
so
Thank you.
that's the superstar gone now. Anyone who's shy, you can ask whatever you want now. Karen, I was hoping that more people would chip in, but it's incredible how shy people are.
Guys, just to say well done, and just to say you guys were doing such a good job. We didn't want to jump in and kind of I don't know, just kind of jump in on top of you, but you did a wonderful job there answering all those questions and everything. I mean, I think we got a massive amount out of it.
Yeah, it was very good, wasn't it?
That was amazing. It was just amazing. You know, you can't believe this, that we've got such quality athletes, international athletes giving their time. And, you know, I mean, this is just unbelievable, really, you know, very exciting. Olympic champion on the call here, and we're asking him questions and getting
90
these
minutes. I couldn't believe it. I expected about 10 minutes.
It's amazing. Fair play to you. See, it's a real coup.
And guys, everybody may not be aware, but Anton is in Australia at the moment. He's taken it upon. It was Anton's contact with Stefan here that made this happen tonight, and Olivia putting all this together. So really, thanks on behalf of everybody to the two of you. It's been great. Yeah.
Oh no, it's the least we can do. I actually feel very guilty that I've given so little to the sport, and the sport gave so much to me, but arguably too much, because as a teenager I was traveling all over the world, and I kind of felt a bit embarrassed when Stefan was talking, because he was talking about me. Who cares that you won the under-11 national championships, community games, and all that stuff? It was. So one of the takeaway messages for me was just to go easy with the kids. And then when they get to, you know, Melvin's age, 14, 15, 16, gradually introduce a little bit more volume. But I think the number one message for me was the fact that he didn't lose interest. He didn't lose interest because of the stability of his home life, but also because of the culture in Sweden, that people were always like, oh, this is our lifestyle. This is something we do because we love it, and we there's friendships involved. I love the story about his dad and that Finnish coach. I can just picture them. You know, I mean, that's where the genius is. You know, the expertise of the guys who are going to support them. You know, I mean, he'd say things like, oh, I don't know how we had this talented